All right, here we go. It's another edition of Inside Fitness Radio. Today's guest is TJ Humphreys. TJ, how's it going?
I am fantastic. How are you, Terry?
Great, TJ. Thank you for coming all the way to Canada. We're actually, it's snowing outside right now, and
Beautiful.
yeah. We
don't get this in Texas, as you can probably imagine. Yeah, the snow is very uncommon for us.
Now, did you grow up in Texas?
I grew up in Southern California.
Southern California.
So snow is even less available.
Where did you go to school?
I graduated from UC Irvine.
Oh, okay.
So like Newport Beach, lived in that area for 10 years.
No way.
So
No way.
That was awesome.
So what kind of stuff did you do in school? Did you play sports?
Well, it's funny. I was a big baseball player growing up, and I went to UC Irvine to play baseball.
Yeah.
And it's kind of what got me into fitness, to be honest, because I got to school and I realized like all these dudes were like 30 pounds heavier than me, and I rushed a fraternity, and all the fraternity brothers were like jacked. So I was like, man, I got to get into weight training. Like when I was in high school, weight training was like a regimen, but it wasn't required.
Yeah.
And so when I got to college, it was about, man, I got to step my game up. So I went from playing baseball in high school to going to college to play baseball, but then I wound up getting into fitness instead.
Wow. There's going to be a lot of things we're going to go over. TJ is the CEO of ProSupps.
Yes.
ProSupps has been around for how long?
8 years. This is our 8-year anniversary. Yeah, which is
wow.
Yeah, time flies. Man.
Time flies because I remember seeing you in the because I go back obviously 20. I remember seeing you in the ProLab ads.
Oh my gosh, yes, those were great times. I was just talking to somebody, me and Stan McQuay.
Oh yeah.
Stan the man. Those were great times, man.
Yeah, so I mean, the one thing with this podcast is I kind of want to dig deep with people and kind of what motivates them. How do they get to? Basically, there's gonna be people listening saying, "How the heck did you get here?"
Sure.
Know what I mean?
Yeah.
And like I said, so you grew up in Southern California, went to school, got into sports.
Yeah.
So how did you get into like supplements? Like, what was your first job? What did you do?
Dude, I was always, so when I started really weight training when I was in college, that's kind of when I started experimenting with supplementation. Back then, it was Weeder. It was Mega Mass protein powder, And
do you remember the first one you bought?
You better believe it, man. It was like a 400-pound bag of protein that I bought from someplace, and I can still remember. But I remember loving the taste. But I know, as we all know, things have improved significantly since then. But that got me into supplements.
You love the taste of that?
Believe it or not, I swear, I would come back from I used to bounce at this nightclub, and I'd come back at 3 a.m. and make like a 1,400 calorie shake, and yeah, it's crazy, man. Yeah.
So you got into supplements then, and then so did you work in? You were a bouncer. What kind of job
so I did that. I did that through college. I got into supplements really when a buddy of mine named John Hoffman, who used to own Lone Star Distribution. Yeah. I was living in Colorado at the time. He gave me a call and he said, "Hey, you won't believe this, man, but I just found out that the girl I'm dating is pregnant. Yeah. And I just had a mild heart attack." The two are not related. You'd think that one has something to do with the other, but he said, "Man, I really need some help running this business." Yeah. And of course, I've been a big fan of sports nutrition because I was taking the products. Yeah. But I had no knowledge of how to grow a business in that arena, right? Yeah. So flew down to see him. I walked into a 20,000 square foot warehouse full of protein bars and protein powders. This was before the pre-workouts were even a thing. Yeah. And I was just enamored by the opportunity to try to grow a business with him. So that got me into supplements. So it was with Lone Star back, it was like 20 years ago.
So distribution. So how many stores, how did it work? What was exactly did Lone Star do?
Yeah. So they were a distributor. So they were like my partner here, Peak Performance. They sold to different retail stores. So, but this was even before the internet days, before websites were out selling supplements. They were brick and mortar, which would be like your sports nutrition stores. Yeah. They sold to maybe, I don't know, 200 or 300 different retailers. It was a small business at the time, but I kind of saw the opportunity to help grow it in different ways. And
who were some of the guys that you worked with at that time that stuck out?
So one was a online retailer called Save On Supplements, and they're located in Colorado. And they were, at the time, probably the pioneers in selling supplements online. They were really early on. The owner, Craig, he has since passed away. He passed away about 5 years ago, which is really bad. But guys like that. Gold's Gym has always been a player in the business. 24-Hour Fitness. Bally's, remember Bally's?
Oh yeah.
Bally's was a baller, man. Bally's was like a big account for us. Yeah, for sure. So
crazy.
Yeah.
So okay, you got into distribution, and
Yep.
then so how did because you've been obviously in magazines, you've been I
Yeah.
think you had about 6 magazines.
Yeah, 6 covers. Yeah, 6 covers.
Now how does this happen?
Man, that was so I was competing at the USA's in Las Vegas. Art Atwood, ironically, the guy who started Professional Supplements, which is the brand that I bought and have since grown as a CEO.
Yeah.
Art Atwood coached me to get to the USA's. Out of like 300 competitors, 3 people from Muscle and Fitness were walking backstage, and they were just. I noticed they kept looking at me, and I was like, man, I wonder what they're about, right? They came up to me after the show, and they said, hey, we'd like to shoot you tomorrow morning. It's you and Phil Heath. So out of 300 competitors, they picked me and Phil. And Phil wound up winning that show and wound up getting his pro card, right?
Yeah.
That's a whole funny story. I won't. We can share for a different time. But that got me into the magazines, and I didn't shoot a cup. That was my first photo shoot I've ever done.
So you'd never done a photo shoot.
Never.
You're how many shows?
Scared to death.
How many shows did you do before the USA?
Before USA's, I probably did 3 or 4 shows.
And why did you get into competing? What's
funny? It was on a bet. It was on honestly a dare from a buddy of mine that I worked out with in Colorado. He said, "Man, your physique, you should absolutely get into bodybuilding." I'm like, "What the hell is bodybuilding?" I literally had to look it up, and when I saw these guys wearing these little bikinis, I'm thinking, "Man, I don't know if I want to do that." And so he dared me to do it.
Yeah.
And I jumped on stage. I didn't have any coaching on posing except for my business partner's wife, Karina Nascimento, who was a female bodybuilder.
Yeah.
She coached me 3 days before the show on how to do what I thought were male mandatory poses. No joke. I wound up, so I'm going through my routine, and I wound up doing a couple of these poses. I'm hearing laughter from the front row. I'm thinking, why are they laughing at me? Turns out I wound up doing 2 female bodybuilding poses.
Oh my God.
I still finished second. So the running joke is, man, I could have gotten first if I didn't do those. Yeah.
Wow.
But that's what got me hooked. You finish, and it's almost in life. Like if you finish second and you can see first place, you get inspired because you're like, man, I'm almost there. Right. So that kept me going. And I wound up winning a bunch of shows after that. And never won my pro card, unfortunately, but I competed with some really great dudes like Phil Heath.
Yeah, that's cool.
Stan McQuay.
What year was that?
So I did nationals. I did USA's in 2004, I think it was, and I did nationals in 2005. So those are the shows that I tried to get my pro card in. I didn't get it, but Evan Senapani, guys back in the day that really stood out. I got to compete with a bunch of those guys.
So what do you think of bodybuilding now compared to back then?
Still a big fan of the sport, obviously, but it too has changed. I think it's been what I think has been great about it is when I was bodybuilding or when I was competing, if you didn't bodybuild, you couldn't compete. So if you didn't have that crazy muscle mass and that the full muscle bellies, you could compete, but you just wouldn't place very well. Now there's all these different divisions that allow for guys that are saying, hey, look, I can't necessarily be as big as that guy, but I want that competitive edge. I want that competitive opportunity. So they're getting into classic physique and men's physique. So I think it's cool that it's opened up to a variety of different places where guys and girls who historically, I would say 10 years ago, couldn't compete. Now they've got the opportunity.
Well, I think one thing I see, because when I used to read Muscle Mag when I was younger. And I mean, in order to be a professional bodybuilder, I loved Kevin Levroni's physique, Flex Wheeler, and these guys. These guys I looked at. Of
course.
I didn't know if they used steroids or not.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I read the magazines. I didn't know what to believe at times. There was no internet. And I mean, like, there's no bikini. There was none of this stuff. It didn't exist. Right. So to get into it at a young age, like nowadays, I get it. Like if I see an 18-year-old, I'm like, they're trying to get in shape to get on stage. I'm like, good for you. I mean, that exactly. Really. I mean, there were people who did it. It's just you either had to be this big guy. So I mean, I like that they have different divisions. They even I think have a wellness division, all that.
Yeah.
So you obviously travel a lot. You are all over the world. How many countries? Do you guys sell to?
So we're probably in about 55 different countries where we actually have set up distribution. And there's probably more where they bring in product, through different means. But we've been really blessed to be able to, I love to travel anyway. But to be able to see like the brand grow the way it has in all those different countries is exciting.
So when you started the brand, how did it form? Like you'd worked from some other companies? How did it really kind of materialize?
Well, so ironically, Art Atwood, who was my coach all the way through when I was competing, he also passed away September 11th of 2011. His family inherited the business. They didn't know what to do with it. They were staffing agency. They were his sister and his sister's husband.
Yep.
They were employed as professional staffing in a professional staffing agency, and they inherited this business. And so they started thumbing through all of his notes to try to figure out what to do with it. Mm-hmm. My name came up like 50 times because Art and I talked about everything, man. We talked about formulas, and we talked about selling strategy, and we talked about distribution, and we were great friends too. So they reached out and they said, look, we've got this business. We don't know what to do with it. Are you interested in either, helping us grow it? Can we hire you? Or do you want to buy it? At the time I was working for another brand. I was miserable there, but it was one of those things where, do I want to be an entrepreneur all over again? Because I had done that once before, and it's a great ride, but it's exhausting.
How old were you?
So at that time, it was 8 years ago. So I'm 49 now. So I was probably 40 at the time.
I mean, and people listening to this, I mean, we're gonna have all types of ages and all that. And I'm hitting 45 this year. I'm 44, and I don't know. I'm if I had 40 years old, you have to start another business.
Yeah,
and you've been through it because when you're a bit naive, I think it's a great thing sometimes.
No,
right?
naivete is
sometimes
for sure.
It's not a bad thing.
Right.
I didn't know this is going to happen.
You're fearless. You're almost like you go in without fear, right?
Yeah. So you had to make this big decision. Mm-hmm. You told your wife, your family, like, hey, this is what I'm going to do.
Yes.
Was there any hesitation? Was it like, you really want to do this?
No. So you know what it was for me? I have always been one that I've always just believed in my ability, no matter where I'm at.
Yeah.
I've always said like confidence is probably, and it's self-confidence. It's not, it's not arrogance, it's confidence, but knowing really truly what your true skill sets are and where you're strong and the attributes that you have and not doubting those. Like I never doubted my ability. Never. I doubted the opportunity, but I never doubted my ability. So I think I just said, you know what, I can do this again, even at 40. Even though I'd been an entrepreneur my entire life, even before I got out of college, I started my first business, which is a juice bar franchise.
Oh, wow. Grew
it from one store to 160, sold it to a private equity firm at the age of 29. So I've been an entrepreneur my whole life, man. So, it's exhausting. It's fun. But I would just encourage people that are listening, doesn't matter what age you are, doesn't matter, if you have an idea and it really is something that you feel will truly, invigorate you and make you happy, you owe it to yourself to take a shot.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, in ProSupps, I remember seeing ProSupps and hearing about it. Actually, a good friend of both of ours, Steve Cardillo.
Yes,
Steve Cardillo called me up and he says, "Hey, brother, he goes, yeah, look at these guys. He goes, these guys are good. You gotta call them. They're gonna come to Canada.
Yeah."
And then I remember the guys coming up, and you guys literally it was like you guys just went through. You guys stormed right in.
Yes.
I remember because it was the health food shows and all that, and they came to
Toronto Pro,
Toronto Pro show, and you guys came up and you got people excited about the brand, and that was one thing that I working with you guys, I saw that you guys would create this buzz, and you obviously got engagement with people. What was one of the?
It's great because our whole goal was not just like I think today the industry's changed so much about there'll be companies that come out to launch a product.
Yeah.
Our goal from the very beginning is to launch a kind of a culture and a brand. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so we focused there first, and products followed, right? So we wanted people to understand who we were first, and be excited to work with us first.
Yeah.
And then as we started introducing new products that we and all of our guys, as you know, man, we walked into a show, there were 10 or 12 of us that we lived in the gym. We still do. I mean, all the original founders are 7 days a week.
That's one thing I see a lot. I mean, everyone is on Instagram. You guys are very active on social media.
Yeah, for sure.
And then you guys are obviously work out together. You don't only just you go for dinners and all that. You guys actually train like all
we do,
the time.
Man. I mean, we do. Like when we go on a trip, it's we train with each other, but we bring a lot of times we'll bring our distributors along, or retailers along, consumers. We'll have our the fans that are in different parts of the world. We invite them out because for us, it's about. For us, I think it's a lifestyle, right? And the more we can get people introduced to who we are as a group, and let them know what we're about, the more intriguing ProSupps becomes as an opportunity for them to better themselves in terms of supplementation, right?
Yeah. So some of the things I kind of want to get into too is like some of the pitfalls. You know what I mean? Like, obviously, things are great and things are moving along, but you've had probably things that happened to you that were like a kick in the nuts. Is there anything that
100%
would come to mind?
Well, I mean, tons, right? When you're starting a business, for one, we were totally undercapitalized. The seed capital I raised to start this business was from a dentist in Humboldt, Texas, that was a big fan of me as an athlete. He, big muscle and fitness guy, subscribed to the magazines. I've been in the magazine probably 50 times. Yeah. So when he found out he could work with me, he invested. So initially on, it was just, we were undercapitalized. So
you got the company. I guess this is the one thing I try to, you don't have to give us all the
Oh,
details,
yeah, sure.
but I want to know how people because someone watching this or listening to this, they're going to be like, how you end up there. And financial is a part of it too, right? Like there could be a 21-year-old going, fuck, I got like 10 grand. I'm going to start a supplement line.
Sure.
But then they're like, well, I just lost 10 grand plus, whatever it was.
Right.
So when it came to that money part, you had your own money and then you got some investment.
Yes. We had, but it was still, we knew going in.
Yeah.
That we were going to have to, that the business was going to be undercapitalized, and we knew that we had to lean on partners like Europa as a distributor, my manufacturers. We had to get them to believe in the vision. And that's, I would say that was really the key to our success is they believed, they knew that this group of dudes could do it. Yeah. And we did it, and we communicated and communicated the vision. And so really money, it does take money to start a business.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But I do believe that if you can get people excited about your vision, you could start with less and just leverage those partnerships, and everybody benefits, right?
Okay, so once you got some of that initial money, some product launches, what were your standout product launches? Which ones really hit home?
It's so funny you asked. So Art was really known as the king of carbohydrates. Yeah. He had a product called Pure Carbolin. I don't know if it ever made to Canada or not, but he was the guy that knew how to not just supplement with carbohydrates, but diet with carbohydrates, and around the workout windows and stuff like that. So we thought, you know what, we couldn't sell Carbolin anymore, and that's another long story. So we had to come out with a carb product in honor of Art Atwood, because that's what he was about.
Yeah.
So we launched Carbolic, which is, in hindsight, if anyone knows about carb powders, that's a real niche product. Like that's not what you typically kick the door open with. You wouldn't say, hey, guess what? We're ProSupps and we're launching a carb powder. Yeah. But it was so funny. Me and Mike, AKA Fish, we talked about it on the way in here. We're like, it's just so funny that product was something we were like, oh, this is going to be great. We're going to get Carbolic everywhere. So at no point in time did we feel like we were going to have a challenge there. I think the biggest challenges for us over the last 8 years were initially was undercapitalization, growing pains around staffing and what we needed. And then ultimately, as the business morphs, as you know today, the industry's changed so much, having to downsize. Because you build an organization that 10 years ago was built to grow in that capacity the way businesses grew 10 years ago. Fast forward 10 years, and it's a totally different model, right? So those have been the biggest challenges.
Yeah, so technology plays a big factor in helping. I mean, listen, I think we're both in the same boat as far as it's helped me a lot, but they can hinder, people. I think it's too, when you have this technology and social media and all that, there's so many messages going out. There's so many ways to get it out there. Where prior to really the internet, you had your traditional forms of medium. Yeah. And yes, they had more control, but at least, if you did do television or if you did radio or something like that, you knew it was going somewhere, and you knew that. Nowadays, we don't really know exactly. Social media, I think it's one of those things that people either like what you're doing or they don't like what you're doing, so they can tune in. Right. I think it's a bit of a challenge when you have a 24-hour channel on something that's just the same thing, and that's where I say you guys change it up. I watch the Instagram stories. You guys are always on the move. How do you balance travel in your life? Because having a family is one thing. Obviously, it's tricky. So traveling and business and everything.
You know what? I think balance is everything, right? I've got great support. My wife gives me incredible support. She knows we've been together for 13 years, so she knows. And she's been with me in the entrepreneurial, peaks and valleys. So she gets it. I would say for those listeners that are married, you really need to have that conversation with your. But I think with family, I've got 6 kids. I have triplet boys that are 5.5. So
wow.
So wow. So I think I think more than anything, I just bring back really cool toys from the trips. That's what I bring back, cool toys from all parts of the world. Stuff. Yeah. So I mean, it is balance and but it's compromise. And I think what's cool is my sons are seeing daddy hustling, right? And that's you see that so much nowadays. There's so much kind of not hustle, or the kind of the the entitlement mentality. And I hate to see that in the younger generation, because that's not how I was raised. And so hopefully my sons and my daughters get to see, this is how you want to make a stamp, you want to put your stake in the ground. You got to get out and hustle.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, one of the things I've noticed in Instagram videos is you talk about passion.
Yeah.
And where does your passion come from? Is this like your parents instilled this in you? Like, who influenced you to get for this passion?
Man, that is a great question, because anybody that knows my parents, I had a great childhood. Like, my parents were super supportive, but my dad was an aeronautical engineer. So, I mean, the guy probably said 5 words a week. That, like, he just wasn't a very communicative kind of guy. My mom is the opposite. Yeah. I think the passion for me is there's not one person I look to. There's not, I read a lot. I think for me, it's just I have this desire for self-improvement. Like, it's just something that I'm super competitive. And my grandfather was that way, but I think it just comes from within. Of course, social media. Well,
being competitive, some people think that it's a bad thing, and all that. But I mean, I like competition.
Yeah,
I've made some really cool shit in my life because I'm like, fuck, I got to do this.
Yes,
I got to do this because. When I set out to start Inside Fitness, I wanted to beat Muscle and Fitness and Sales in Canada, and I thought, okay, I could do this in 10 years. I started out in my basement. But after about, I think it was about 4 or 5 years, we had beat them on sales, maybe actually 3 or 4 years. So I definitely had taken that approach of wanting to achieve things.
Right.
But then when I achieve something, I'm not happy for too long. It's a bit of a sickness. I don't even know how to explain this to people.
No, I've always said, I've even told our team, it's great to win, but then what? Yeah. Like, because if you sit back on the balls of your ass and relish in a win, people behind you are going to say, oh, they're going to be able to blow right by you. And it's not, take the time to reward yourself for winning, for sure. Okay. But understand, like, there's complacency is a killer. It doesn't matter what business you're in, even in life. Like, you've got to be able to continue to take the wins and learn from the losses, and then always be hungry for something more. Like, and it's not about, not being satisfied, right? To me, if you're competitive, you're going to have a natural progression to want to better yourself every day. Like, whether it's in the gym, professionally, even with your family life, right? Yeah. I always want to look, there's days where I think I'm a great dad and husband. There's days where I think I'm not, right? But even the days that I think, oh, I took the kids to the park and I did all this stuff, it's great. But like, I want to, you want to perpetuate that, right? Yeah. And that's how, that's how I live my life.
Cool. Now, so in the supplement industry, outside of your brand here, what brands do you admire? Is there any brands that you respect? I mean, that stand out to you? Sure. Like, what, props them? Who would you say stands out right now?
I would say, it's funny because when we started ProSupps, it was a different time. Yeah.
So when you started, who kind of like caught your eye and like, shit,
it probably would have been, it probably would have been like, when we started, it probably would have been like Gaspari or, gosh, I would say that was after USP Labs. I'm trying to remember exactly. There were some brands that we started at the same time they did, and they're not around anymore. Yeah. Which is no shock. 8 years is a long time to be doing what we're doing. Now today, I think there's some brands that I think have done a nice job.
How about now? So who currently do you think?
I would say when I look at how we started our brand and creating kind of this tribal feel and this culture, I think Redcon today has done a nice job with that. Yeah. Aaron's done a nice job with that. And different time. He's had a couple different brands, and obviously, those didn't work out. And he's got one that he's humming with now, and I think it's a good brand. I think we're trying to, for us, I think we're really leaning into who we are as a brand. So I think we've got a lot of exciting stuff coming up.
What do you guys have? What do you guys have planned? What's going on in the immediate future this year? What do you guys have lined up?
So we know we did a lot of research with our current kind of fan base, and we asked them, how do you perceive ProSupps? Like, what are the words that you use when you think of ProSupps? And performance and edge are two of the words that we let them choose from out of like a list of 20 that came up in a huge majority. So I think people recognize our brand as a performance-driven brand. Yeah. We're not lifestyle. We don't chase a certain. We try to capture a lot of people, but ultimately, we want to lean into what we're known for, which is delivering performance products, right?
How hands-on are you in the formulations and the whole science behind it?
Really hands-on. Now, I would tell you the science continues to evolve. regulations, governmental regulations, especially here in Canada. I mean, that's been a challenge for us, is you have to look at all these different markets and say, okay, look, this is the perfect formula, but if you wanted to deliver it in these different markets, you might have to change things up. So for us, it's always been about delivering a best-in-class formula to as many markets as we can. So we're super involved in the formulas, though.
In which countries are you experiencing some really good growth right now? Where are you guys growing?
Well, I'll tell you, we've had products here for a while with a different distributor. Peak became my partner here.
Yeah, we'll talk about Canada, because you guys started in Canada, 7 years ago?
Yeah, it was like 7 years ago. We started with a carb powder. Canada, I still feel, we're on the same piece of dirt, right? So, it's for us, we feel like there's a lot of great opportunity here in Canada. We've got some new innovation coming. The NPN process has been difficult.
It takes time. Yeah, we like to put some red tape there.
Yeah.
Which retailers in Canada are you focusing on, or which one are you guys working on right now?
We've been really blessed to have acceptance from I think probably most, if not all.
Yeah.
I think Supplement King, Popeyes, those guys have done a nice job at retail. They continue to self-promote. They continue to support the industry. So, and there's others too, Bulldog and, a variety of others, right?
So you guys are now working with Peak, and this is a brand new thing. This just started several months ago.
Right.
Will you guys be doing trade shows? Like, when people want to see the product, try the product, where can they do this in Canada?
So we've always been pretty active with in-store demos.
Yeah.
We're looking at a different way to deliver product direct to the consumer, whether it's a sampling, even some of our swag. ProSupps has always been known for creating really cool clothing.
Yeah.
And so we're going to get back into that, which is exciting because clothing is culture and culture is us, right?
Yeah,
so
very cool. Yeah.
So we're going to get back into that. So I think we're looking now at really trying to, and we've got a good model that we're probably going to launch in the next 60 to 90 days to really key in directly to the consumer. So we have a personal kind of a contact point with that consumer, bringing them samples, bringing them opportunities for purchase, a bunch of different things to really connect with the consumer in a really kind of real and organic kind of way.
So how do you feel the digital component, online sales, because you coming from distribution, all that, where do you see it fitting in moving forward?
I think because especially in the U.S., it's actually different than here in Canada. Canada,
and you
it
come
is
up
significantly different.
Yeah, you're one of the CEOs that actually comes up, because I do have friends down in the States, and I'm like, you could be in New York, but it's so different once you cross the border.
Without a doubt.
Right.
So, it is so different. Your brick and mortar, which is your stores, your store business here is way less
I think the store managers, consumers, they see it. They see this transparency, because it's not just bullshit. You're not just saying, hey, you know what, I care about it and all that. You actually are physically, listen, even just to make the time. When you're here, you're a very busy guy. To get you to sit down. Why? Why do you do this?
Man, you know what?
You don't have to.
I love it.
Yeah.
It comes from the passion that I have for reaching people with the brand that we created 8 years ago.
Yeah.
I feel like that's a really impactful way to do it, when I can go and, get into a town and go sit, see some retail stores, and any way that I can try to connect with consumers, even in the gym this morning, being able to connect with people that, saw us wearing ProSupps stuff and they came up, I take Hyde or whatnot. I love hearing that. Right.
Yeah,
so,
for sure.
and so, and it's a 2.5 hour flight from Texas to here. So, no excuses. And I would say that's one of the things that makes me, but our brand different. We do this because we love it. Like, we'd never, if you were to tell me 8 years ago, hey man, you're going to be in 4,700 Walmart stores in the U.S. with a version of your number one selling pre-workout, I would have laughed at you. That wasn't even on the radar, right? Like, but I've always said, don't worry about the dollars. Don't worry, if you truly love what you do and you present that in a way that is organic and real, the success follows. And we've believed that, and thank God it's worked.
Yeah, I think it's amazing. Obviously, you're someone who's very driven. Money, we all like to make money. I say this, who doesn't like to make money? But it goes further, it goes beyond that, because I think once you even establish certain goals, money is not as important, right?
Right.
Is there anything outside? Is there any charities or anything you do working with kids, or anything that you would want to do? I'm looking personally myself. I would like to get more involved helping the youth.
Sure.
Because I'm not that old, but I'm getting there, and I like working with younger people and trying to get them inspired to do things.
Sure.
I've been doing some boot camps with some
That's
other
awesome.
companies.
That's awesome.
Is there anything that you have lined up? Or?
We've always been really supportive of the U.S. military. We've done a lot of stuff. Like we flew out to Guantanamo Bay in Cuba and did like big massive workout and a promotion around that. We've gone to Fort Hood. My dad. I mean, I'm a military brat, so I kind of come from that background and lifestyle. And but I think for me personally, I do a lot of stuff with my church. And I think you're right. I think the youth, having 6 kids like I do, there's a way that I think if we can educate them early on healthy eating, healthy lifestyles, fitness.
Yeah, I mean, there's something to be said about obviously trying to help out. And when I was younger, I was consumed by just trying to make money. You know what I mean? I was that guy who was just trying to achieve things. I achieved certain things, but now I could look back and say, okay, you know what? That was cool, but how can I cheat someone?
I think that's awesome. And, I think it's natural for people to use money as like a scorecard.
Yeah.
Like, oh, when I make this much, I've made it, right? But when people find out, it just leaves you real empty when you just focus just on that.
I wonder if it's got something to do with having children or not. You know what I mean? Because I'm one of my, he was a good friend of mine who passed away, Greg Plitt. He was one of the guys, listen, before all the bullshit motivation started really online.
Yeah.
He was about being remembered, legacy lives on, and all that stuff. And that really, dawned on me as far as it doesn't really matter how many cars you could have, all that.
Right.
I think it's really cool to have stuff that you enjoy and appreciate that.
Right.
But to actually leave marks in people's lives. And I think that's one of the cool things in the supplement industry. I mean, you're obviously making money, you're providing opportunities for families. How many employees do you have?
It's funny. I think about that all the time. Like, I think probably one of the most rewarding things I get by starting a company, and even as we grow it, is providing not just jobs, but opportunities for young. I mean, we brought on a lot of young people that are going to make this is their first stop in hopefully a super successful career. And I look at it as, man, that's a rewarding thing for me as a CEO to be able to say, look, this may be a place that they're starting, but I want this to be a place that they remember and that they love being at and they learn something from, and not just, from an occupational perspective, but a personal perspective too.
That's cool. It's funny. Most of my friends are either like ex-employees of mine, guys who work for me.
Sure,
man. It's so weird. It's like they worked with me at some point. I worked with them. I worked with them as another company, all that. And it's cool. And I think the supplement industry is a fun place. I think it's growing. What trend do you see coming down? Where do you see it going? Then maybe the next several years. I'm talking this year. What do you see? Where do you see?
You know what? We put ourselves in a really good spot, and it might be by accident. I could say that we did it on purpose, but I think it's probably more just out of luck, maybe a little bit. Because we're a performance brand. We've always built formulas around ingredients that are geared towards performance. I'm hoping, and you're seeing some of this in the U.S., a lot of I call them bathtub brands, guys that make 100 pre-workouts that have all kinds of stuff. Half of it's illegal, half of it's unregulated. You're seeing a lot of those kind of get flushed out and kind of a flight to quality happening, which as we see more of that, which I think we will, you're going to see, I think, fewer brands. There's always the startups. There's always the ambassador or the affiliate that's got 1 million followers that thinks, getting the supplement business is easy and they're just going to do it. And they come in the space, and then 12 months later they vacate the space. And so there's always going to be that. But I think eventually the consumer is there'll be a flight to quality and trust around supplementation. I think we put ourselves in a good spot for that.
Perfect. Looking forward to seeing what you guys are going to do. I really appreciate the time today.
That's great, Terry. Thank you.
Is there anything where people can find you on social media? What's your handle?
So this is funny, and it's funny because I talk about this all the time. So when social media, when that came on, Brian Eichelina, he was my Ike, my right hand guy. He comes in the office and he says, "Man," in his I'll do the Ike voice. Yeah. "Yo guys, you got to load this Instagram. You got to load this Instagram app." And we're like, "What is that?" He said, "Well, load it. And then we'll go to the stores and we'll take pictures of each other and we'll post them." I'm like, "Are you crazy, man?" So we wound up all doing it. Yeah. And I said, "What am I going to call myself?" And then JP, one of my other guys, we had like 5 guys, Mike, JP, Ike, Ron. We had a bunch of founders of the brand. Yeah. And they're all, JP's like, "Oh, that's easy. You're CEO Swole." I'm like, "There you CEO." So that has stuck for 8 years. CEO that's Swole, CEO_Swole. I would love for you guys to follow me. Obviously, I put some crazy stuff up there, but insights on the industry. My page is mostly for trying to inspire others, trying to motivate people, no matter where they are in their fitness life, in their business life, personal life. Just try to get them to think a little bit differently, you know?
Yeah. Now, before I let you go, I'm gonna get a podcast with probably several CEOs of supplement companies.
Yeah.
Guys you may compete with. Would this be something you would do?
I would love it. Actually,
put you on the spot.
I'll tell you what. No, you know what?
I would love to do it because
listen. Yeah. I'm gonna let you. I'm gonna let the cat out of the bag. I'm actually gonna do something at the Olympia where I'm going to invite other CEOs to work out.
No way.
This is why, man. Straight up. This is why,
awesome.
Bro. This is why. And you know what?
Awesome.
And I know there's a couple out there that actually. There's a very select few that actually do train.
Yeah.
Most do not, to be clear. But I think it's important if you're going to lead a company and you're going to make products that you're going to sell to people that you say are going to work and help them improve their lives. You got to live it.
I think that's a great idea.
So that's happening at the Olympia. I'm going live today. Whenever this is it, man.
Is there anyone you're gonna mention right now?
Well, you know, I know Aaron trains, so I'll invite Aaron, and I'll probably invite. I mean, I'll probably invite James. James, if he's still around. Yeah,
James.
Yeah. So I mean, guys that I haven't seen in a while that I know train. You know what? It's gonna be. It's not a challenge. It's more of a hey, let's get. It's a very positive thing. You know,
it goes back to having competitiveness, but it's a good. You know,
it's good,
at the end
man.
of the day, there's enough, to be made for everyone. So.
And I want others to hear and see that this is there are brands that are out there that stand behind the products and that live it, right? And so it's
and I encourage everyone who's listening to go online, check you out.
Appreciate
there's a lot of brands that we do we put out there, we see, but certainly go check out ProSupps.
Yep.
And thank you.
Thank you, Terry. It's great, man.
All right.